45 of It's Never Sunny in Seattle, a Seattle Mariners podcast. I'm your host today, Evan James, joined by Michael Ahedo. And Andrews Jorstad is not with us. It's actually Mother's Day, so we are getting this recording in real quick before the game starts, and we get to watch George Kirby and also spend time with our mothers, hopefully. This week, the dead ball continues to haunt the Mariners, who have slunk home after a pretty ghastly road trip that dropped the team below 500. And they've continued to slide with a couple of games against the Rays, now sitting at 12-16. The Rays series was real rough, not gonna lie, so far. And the Phillies are coming into town, and then we go east for a series against the Mets on the horizon. May is a pretty rough month for the Mariners as far as the schedule is concerned. But I think the first thing I would want to say is I want to preach patience, because the Mariners dropped 5 games below 500 last year around this time. It was about a week later. But we've been here before, so it's not all doom and gloom. There's a long way to go. But we're going to start off talking today about the dead ball, because it's affecting not only the Mariners, but baseball in general. And there are a couple of articles that came out this week, one on ESPN about the dead ball, another one on Yahoo that we were reading earlier. And there's just some pretty clear, glaring statistics that home runs, doubles, anything slugging is getting as much of a 30% reduction in effectiveness and results over the course of the year so far. Mikey, obviously you're the pitching guru and the stats guy relative to myself. So why don't you tell us a little bit about which one of those articles you're digging into right now and how the dead ball is affecting the game?
Yeah, I mean, they kind of attack things from different angles, which is helpful. Um, I think the most digestible is the Yahoo one. So, I mean, well, no, we won't start with that. The ESPN one has a couple pretty good tidbits. One of the tables, they talk about what's essentially like um barrel percentage, like barrels. So balls hit 100 miles per hour and 20 to 35 degree launch angle. So in the StatCast era from 2015 to last year, um, balls at this, hit at in these at this criteria, I guess. 59% of them went for home runs. This year it's down to 47%. They're flying about 5 feet, actually exactly 5 feet less far. Batting average is down 84 points. Slugging is down 400 points. So it's pretty clear, from those numbers that the ball's really, really dead. And I mean, yeah, we could get into a bunch of the other, numbers, but really, if you look at some of these graphs, it's really damning. Like the ball is easily like, we talk about, the significance of certain balls, more recently since, really like 2018, 19, whatever the juice ball was introduced. But this one's dead. It's easily, the most deadened ball of, the past 6-7 years. And I like the idea of something that is a little deadened relative to last year, but this is overkill. I mean, we have the same ball from last year supposedly, and there's a lot of details about it that it's kind of hard to know, like, what's going on. But they also introduced the humidor at every stadium, and I think that's a really terrible idea, especially to have it at, like, in Colorado makes sense, and that's one of the reasons why it was introduced. To have it at T-Mobile Park doesn't make sense. We already have really, one of the big cliches is like the thick, heavy marine layer. Yeah. So to like double up, it just doesn't make sense, and the ball's just too soggy. um so yeah, it's not ideal. It's really too much, and um home runs are exciting, and to see a player, and it makes it really confusing because commentators are already really bad at knowing, when a ball is going to fly out. to see a player really get into one and then for it to die even before the warning track, I think it's really getting in players' heads. I think it's really doing a disservice to young players, especially like Jared Kelnick. Um, yeah, it's really bad.
Yeah, and I think the thing that's weirdest about this for me is they did this on purpose, seemingly, and I don't mean actually deadening the ball, but like you said, introducing the humidor. Theoretically, that's a control system, right? Like from a scientific perspective, what the humidor should do is it should standardize the results across the sport. But they seemingly got it exactly wrong, right? Like they seemingly whatever implementation of this occurred has given the opposite effect that they were looking for. Maybe that's incorrect. Maybe it has standardized the results and that the ball is worse everywhere, but I don't think that they intended it to this degree. I don't think that 30% of offense being taken out of baseball was ever really the intent of this. Um, I don't know how they fix it, and it's difficult because we talked a little bit on the LL pod about when they had the juice ball in 2019, what they essentially did was they had 3 balls going around at any one time. They had older balls from the previous year they were still using, and they had 2 versions of the newer ball that were both getting different results. And they didn't tell us any of that. It's likely that we have something go on again where, maybe nobody's using the humidor, or they go back to just Colorado, or, they pick a couple of specific teams to continue using it. But this just doesn't seem sustainable. Would you agree that, like, they have to do something because this is legitimately detrimental to the sport as it is currently being played?
Yeah, I don't think it's good for the sport. It's interesting, if you look at the slugging by launch angle graph on Yahoo, and maybe we can link it in the podcast description. Especially what the ball, what is happening right now is players who hit, for power and who hit the ball at high launch angles, especially players with really fringe power, like um, Kyle Seager, Omar Narvaez, Bregman. These players are being um, they're being harmed more than most because if you look at slugging by launch angle, the higher launch angles are the ones being harmed the most. So 26 and above. It's down more than ever. The lower launch angles aren't being harmed as much. And so essentially it's kind of leveling the playing field between, like the Adam Frazier's and the, I don't know, Mitch Hanigers, I guess. Um which, is a thing. Like it's kind of tough. But I want to get at what was the actual question that you asked me? I just wanted to to say that real quick.
I was wondering if you think they are going to make some kind of a process change to this in season, because my feeling is that they let this go all year, people are going to be mad because baseball is not fun to watch like this straight up. Do you think that they will change it? Because again, in 2019, they did. We got about 6, 7, 8 weeks into the season and they started doing things differently. Do you think that there is urgency to do things differently? I guess is sort of my question from you, not necessarily from Major League Baseball. Obviously, we don't understand the machinations of your decision making.
Yeah, so yeah, I think the easiest thing, just right off the bat, you can just remove the humidor. Um, you can probably keep it at the parks, the few parks that had it before. I'm trying to think. I know Arizona had one, Colorado obviously had one. So you can probably keep those. Um, but it's the easiest way to get some of that, I guess slugging back, where it's not so drastic. The ball, it sucks, like the easiest way to get a large N or a large, collection of data points is to see it in season, which is not ideal because every season can't be an experiment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, it's kind of tough. In that way, I don't blame MLB. because I think I don't know, they're just so like these things are very hard. Not to twerk for for MLB. These things are legitimately very hard. Um, but the easiest way, is to remove the humidor. That will get it back to a more, or I guess I should just say less extreme baseball immediately. And we'll see some of that power come back. And I don't know. It's just a really tough thing because if you're a purist, you want to like a baseball purist, you want to see just the ball that they've always used, which means that the game's going to be really different because teams are, they're going for more strikeouts, more home runs. That probably makes for a worse product. What I was, tweeting about the other day is if you want a better product, what I would do in the off season is pitch clock, because that speeds up pace of play. And it should make pitchers less effective. Lower the mound a little bit, because we've seen that if you actually move the mound back, that actually makes pitches nastier because they have, more distance to, like a sweeper has, it's going to be even sweepier. Or, a 12-6 curveball is going to come in even steeper. So it has kind of mixed effects. So lower the mound, pitch clock, and maybe you have the same dead ball. But like, it's so tough. It's so tough to even model what these changes are going to do. I'm so sorry for going on these monologues all the time.
No, dude, that's why you're here. People want to hear what you have to say about this and what you
Yeah.
think about it. And I want to hear what you think about it. Because we know, I'm, I'm a little bit of a pariah in the Slack for being a bit of a baseball futurist in terms of my willingness to
Mhm.
change the rules and such. More around strikes than this kind of stuff. I don't think that like making the bases bigger or slightly realigning second base is all that big of a deal, honestly. But as it relates to this, part of the reason why I personally feel urgency about this, apart from watching Abe Toro home runs die on the warning track,
Hey,
which
he hit one yesterday.
he did, and so did Jared. Which thank God, oh my
What?
God, Jared
Yesterday?
he had a single yesterday. It was a home run the
Oh.
day before. We're at this stage where if
Yeah.
Jared gets on base in a given week, I feel pretty good for a while. So, yeah, that's where we're at. That.
Oh, good lord.
But I feel desperation over this, and I think rightly so, because it is so counterintuitive to what baseball has said they want to do to change for the better, right? The whole thing with the pitch clocks is making the game shorter so it's more exciting. They want more offense so it's more exciting. They want, fewer bullpen breaks so it's more exciting. And then you take 30% of the home runs and doubles out of the sport. That's not more exciting. That's substantially less exciting. This is horrible. And when we were talking earlier this week and looking at Suarez's numbers, and that his numbers were like a dead ringer for each other. Like year over year, it's hard to have numbers as close as those were. You had a 26-point swing in WRC plus. It's like that's really staggering in terms of just how much has been lost because of this.
Yeah, we can look at league stats too. I can pull one thing to do is to look at league stats overall, see like what the league average WOBA is. But there's also like X WOBA versus WOBA, like differential. So I'll do that right now. Um yeah. So split season.
Let me ask you this while you're doing that.
Mhm.
I think it's fair to assume that there is some kind of change made, that they stop using the humidor, they use it more selectively, something. Pick your poison as a solution to this. When do you think that we will, as fans, assuming they're not going to tell us, be able to see this show up in the data? Is it going to take a week, 6 weeks? How long until we can kind of look and be like, oh, hey, maybe they fixed the ball?
For what?
Um,
Oh, like to know if they did anything?
yeah. When will we kind of see that reflected? Because again, I don't think they're going to tell us. I don't think there's going to be a press release that says,
Mm,
whoops. So, um,
yeah.
we're going to have to glean it.
I think that some balls will start flying out, and people will notice. Um, I think it'll happen in the matter of a couple weeks, honestly. It's kind of tough because there's environmental effects in terms of the weather. Like the kind of cliche is, the ball starts flying more in the hot summer months. Um, so I think we'll know pretty quickly. I do think this is bad for baseball to be changing things constantly. Like, there are so many players that are affected by these really minute differences. Like, you talk about Kyle Seager, Bregman. Bregman, he makes his money, pulling everything to his pull side and just getting everything in the Crawford boxes, basically, hitting high fly balls that don't go very far, but they go far enough. And just getting a volume of them, like, enough of them fly over. And that's true of the Crawford boxes or any park. What you start doing with this ball, that's going to affect him, and that affects his payday, so it's kind of a shame. And so I do feel like I touched on your point, but to
Yes, you
to
did.
bring it back to, the league stats by year, and this is maybe I should filter. I don't think I can do by April or whatever, or month. Oh, I can do first half. Um sorry, I'm just talking a lot to myself. But essentially, like, um by year, like, the league average WOBA usually, you know, um gravitates anywhere from 315 to 320 for WOBA. We are at 305. So that might not seem like a lot, but that's the league average. And particularly, like, if you look at ISO, which is isolated slugging, which is just um slugging minus batting average. Or wait, yeah. um it's down to 139, and the average is probably like 165 before. So that's really significant. BAPIP is down from about 300 every year to 282. So it's really down. This feels unprecedented. And I can pull from, as early as, like, I don't know, let's do 2008. I bet this is the lowest it's been, even, with the kind of fly ball revolution and all these, different changes. Yeah, it's
Yeah, I would think so.
this ISO is second lowest since 2008 for, oh, that's full season. I didn't do first half. But still, I don't think things are going to change that much. I think they'll get a little better, but it should be relatively the same.
I don't know if that's good news. Well, perhaps.
I would say it is bad news.
Yeah, man, it's rough because it feels like you never get anything back. You know what I mean? Like, even if they do fix the ball, the damage has already been done to some of the players psychologically and in terms of their numbers overall. Like, you can recover from some stuff, but Jesse Winker is not recovering all the way back from how bad he has played so far. Neither is Jared. Like, a best case scenario is that they recover most of what they've lost. But like, we're 6-8 weeks into the season. This has been bad so far. Um, yeah, right. That's it. Anything else about that? Or I was gonna put the graphics in the video so we can have that to correspond when you're talking.
Whoa, I
Yeah,
like
big stuff.
that.
Big stuff.
That's super cool.
Um,
Video.
well, let's talk about, I guess, the more pressing Mariner stuff today, because you are the pitching guru, the ESPN pitching guru, Michael Ahedo, and the Mariners did a thing. So we have let's do the new shiny thing first, and then we'll talk about what's gone away. So let's do George Kirby first, who is up today, who had a killer month in Double A, pitcher of the month, Arkansas. Am I right about that? Something like a 1.78 ERA. 26 walks in 26 innings, I believe, or 24 and 24. Just looked really sharp down in, obviously, in Double A. We figured he was going to do well. He's already been there before. He's already been good in Double A. It wasn't a shock that he's been incredible so far. But George Kirby, relative to Matt Brash, who is something more of like a crazy pitch specialist with the stuff and the slider, George Kirby is a very different entity. He has a couple of pitches, he throws them off for strikes. He's much more consistent in terms of command and control. Mikey, what are you expecting to see from George Kirby? And obviously, how excited are you to see him for the first time? Because this is, prospect debut like number 4 on the year, and it's been fun so far.
Yeah, I tweeted out and Matt Brash's first start, I was like, this is, you know, maybe it's just because of like where I'm at in terms of my fandom and analysis, but it was the most excited I'd ever been to watch, a debut. He was just so electric. And so the same's true of George Kirby. There will be things that I'm looking for. There are some people that think, the curveball and slider are above average. There are some people that think they're, slightly below average to average. Way back when, we I don't remember when it was. Maybe it was months ago. We had Joe Doyle on and we talked about his fastball shape. Based on his velo, that's a 80 grade fastball. Maybe 70, but probably 80 grade. The shape's not good. It's a dead zone fastball, if I remember correctly. I don't have the metrics on hand, but I believe it's like 14 or 15 in terms of induced vertical break, and a dead zone fastball is 12 to 16. So when you have a fastball with that shape, you have to gas past it, which means, you have to throw hard. And I think he can do that. But I think that when you see, like 98, it's just going to play. It's weird because, he has what people call, 70, some people call it 80 grade, command. I mean, Prospects Live call it 70 grade control, 60 grade command. Fangraphs call it 70 grade future command. So let's call it 70. That's going to help the fastball play up regardless of shape. So there's that, like the command's going to help it play up and the fastball shape's going to, make it play down. The velo makes it play up. There's like a lot of stuff going on. But I tend to think that shape and velo, in terms of results for fastballs, are kind of the most important. So I think it's going to be an above average pitch. I think he's going to really throw it for strikes, probably somewhere around 30%. But if it's in terms of CSW, but if it's like a Logan Gilbert thing where he gets a lot of foul balls and his strike percentage is good and CSW is not good, I wouldn't be surprised. But what we're going to want to watch is the secondaries, is, how much does he have feel for the curveball and slider? What, do they look nasty? And if they look nasty, they probably are nasty because he can, like you said, he can command them. It's pretty common that people differ on changeups, because they kind of go in and out. They flash, but they're not necessarily great. I think it's gonna be, again, I think all of the stuff is gonna play up because of the velo and how he commands it. But I tend to think that none of the secondaries are plus. I think they're all pretty average, which is fine. There's multiple ways about being a good pitcher. One way is to have an elite fastball, and I don't know. There's fastball, there's secondaries, there's command. He has the fastball, he has the command. If he gets some good breakers going, he's gonna become a Bieber or I almost said Woodman. What's it? Woodruff. He's really nasty. I love George Kirby. He's like the exact type of prospect that I love for a team to get because the foundation is there, and then you can try and add, breakers to the mix. Like, you can teach him a sweeper. Sweepers aren't that tough to teach. It's just like a grip, a seam orientation. Uh, with a fastball, like, he would be dirty. So, it's easier to do that than to take someone with poor command and pretty good secondaries and say, hey, be a starter. And we saw that with Matt Brash.
Yeah, 100% agreed. And George Kirby is, I don't know if he's necessarily as good of a prospect as Logan, but he's in a similar ilk, so to speak. I also think that when you're trying to gauge the way you should evaluate his performance this year, you should look at him as you looked at Logan last year. And you said it yourself, like, we don't necessarily know how the secondaries are going to play up. We know he's going to throw really hard fastballs and locate them well. He's going to succeed to some degree or another based on that alone. And that's what we talk about when you're like, his floor is that he's already really good. His ceiling is that if he can define the secondaries, which he already has some command for, if not necessarily the control, he's going to be something incredibly special, which is where you get the Bieber comparison and the Woodruff comparison, is that the latent talent is there to do that in the tools. I think it is an open question how he modifies his pitch mix and the way he works in some of those secondaries over time. Because we saw this with Logan last year, right? When he wasn't feeling comfortable in the secondaries, he threw tons of fastballs. He still managed to make it work because of the foul balls and, the pop ups and stuff he's managed to induce. But he's been better this year playing with more of those secondaries, refining some of that tool set a little bit, and kind of becoming a more complete pitcher. Kirby very much may need to go through a similar evolution. What do you think he looks like at the beginning of this year? Like, do you think we're going to see a similar thing where when he comes up, he's relying really hard on the stuff he's comfortable with, on the fastballs that he can throw for strikes? Do you think that's kind of a fair expectation, especially because, he is a rookie after all?
I would be surprised if he threw less than 60% fastballs. I think it's going to be a Logan Gilbert, kind of looking thing. The difference is that no one fills up the zone more than him. Whereas, Gilbert, it's like, even now, he'll miss up and arm side with his changeup and fastball and the slider and mostly the curveball. They miss. Kirby's not really gonna miss like that. Like, the misses aren't gonna be as big. So just like, at the end of the game, when you look at a strike zone, like a plot, you're gonna see a lot of pitches in and around the zone. And so, I think that's gonna be kind of the difference. It's gonna be really interesting. Like, him and Brash are so different. Uh, like, they both have good fastballs, but that's about where the comparisons, kind of cease. So it's really interesting. Like, I think there are a lot of things that, um, like, even though I have a good idea of what George Kirby is, his his risk is very low because he has such a good fastball and has such good command. That makes him immediately, like right now, he's a career number 5 starter. He has number 1 upside. He has legitimate ace upside, like top 5 pitcher in baseball upside. Does he match that? Probably not, because it's hard to be a top 5 pitcher in baseball, but that's where the upside is. Um so like so well, I guess I'll get to that when we touch on Brash, but Brash is good when you view him by CSW. He's not good by strike percentage. Kirby's going to be good by strike percentage, where I think it remains to be seen is, like, can he elicit called strikes and whiffs? I think he's going to do the called strikes. The whiffs remain to be seen. And, like, with the secondaries, I don't really expect that unless the fastball is just, that good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair.
Yeah.
Agree with all of that. And I think above all else, this is pretty exciting because he's just a really good prospect. Like you said, he has the number 1 upside potential. I don't think we're looking at that this year, maybe even next year, but he really is the most interesting pitching prospect we've had in a long time. And that's exciting because, you're the pitching guy. We're Mariners fans. We have this podcast. This is what we do is we like to talk about prospects, about pitching, about whatever. So this is right up our alley. And he's a cool story for the team as well. He was drafted at like 22nd overall, I want to say 21st maybe, a couple years ago. The consensus around him was that there wasn't that much to go on, that he had good command, a decent fastball, but they didn't know about the secondaries, and he wasn't throwing particularly hard yet. When he was drafted, he was throwing 92, 93, 94. He went to gas camp and apparently became Strasburg, and was throwing over 100 last year and the year before. Obviously he's kind of like more in the 97, 98 range, I think, as far as his fastball over time. Every once in a while, a prospect is going to pop up doing 101 in Arizona where the air is so thin. But like he's developed elite velocity, and he has maintained the never walk anybody command that he had as a prospect. And that's a good pitcher, right? Like, that's a foundation to be successful from. But let's talk about Brash because he also has a foundation to be successful from in terms of his raw stuff. What we saw was sort of the Matt Brash that we had heard legend of in the minor leagues, which is to say he walked about a batter an inning, threw about 50% strikes with the fastball after that first game. I have two questions for you, Mikey. One is I would like you to evaluate what you saw of Matt Brash in terms of his future potential as in any context, because we talked a little bit in the Discord with some of our It's Never Sunny in Seattle Discord members, which thank you very much always for the questions. I said I didn't know if Brash was a major league pitcher at this point. That's obviously for this particular incarnation, the version of him that's throwing a strike only half the time. So do you think there's more here in terms of tightening up this particular skill set? And if so, do you think he has a shot at the rotation, or is the bullpen really just where the story ends for now?
Yeah. Um on this podcast I've said, I think Matt Brash is a reliever, albeit, an elite one. I haven't, I definitely haven't changed my mind since then. I think actually it was Joe that gave him about league average command and control last year. It's hard because he has. I don't know if I would necessarily call his delivery violent, but it's not, and he's got some of that, like, he doesn't have like that like Scherzer head whip, or is that what the term is? I forget. But like the way that I'll put it is that out of 133 pitchers, he ranks very, very, very good by CSW. He ranks 23rd, which is, I don't know, like 80th percentile, let's call it.
Yeah,
By
gotta be.
strike percentage, he ranks 5th percentile. He ranks 127th out of 133rd.
Not great.
It's not great. That's a 59.3 strike percentage, and just to, get the median, look at the median. Like 64 is about average, so that might not, by percentage that might not seem like a lot, but it's a lot.
Hmm.
That's like he's basically been Dallas Keuchel, which by strike percentage, um, which isn't great. So, I mean, this is he's a very good example of like why CSW is not the end all be all, because you do have to, create some foul balls. You do have to allow some balls in play, because if you don't, then you have to throw a lot of called strikes and whiffs. Like, you have
Hmm.
to elevate your profile, and he's not Shohei Ohtani by CSW. So it just hasn't worked. What I'm thinking about going forward is that he told Pitching Ninja that, like, he's throwing max effort every pitch. That leads me to believe that uh, the velo doesn't tick up in the bullpen.
Hmm.
And if the velo doesn't tick up in the bullpen, I kind of wonder, like, he struggled in the first couple innings and his starts, you know. So what is it that changes that makes him succeed? I don't
Yes.
know what the changes in AAA that they're gonna work on to really help him play up. But right now, it's not really working. Um, and so I continue to believe that the stuff is elite. I still think that he'll be at least an above average reliever. He'll probably walk too many guys, but the swing and miss stuff is still there. It's still nasty. Um, but right now, yeah, it's like watching him was hard. It was really hard to watch him. Like it feels like, you know, just kind of it felt like an experiment. It felt
Hmm.
like we don't really think this guy's a starter, but let's just try it. And yeah. So, yeah.
I think we agree on a major thing, which is that this version of him is not cutting it. And when you say he maybe needs a change or for something to be different, I hear a mechanical tweak to increase strike percentage is really what I hear when anyone says that. And
Mhm.
that's when we talk about sending him down, sending him to the bullpen. The only way I can really rationalize that having any kind of appreciable difference is if that's what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like they did this with Taiwan a couple of years ago when he was still on the team. They sent him down to Tacoma after he had a couple of rocky starts. They did new mechanics with Mel Stottlemyre Jr. at the time, excuse me,
Mm.
um, and brought him back. And I could see them doing something like that with Brash. But if they're determined to just let him be this version of him, unbridled, so to speak,
Mhm.
unencumbered by any mechanical changes, he might just not be very good. He's still gonna have the stuff to get guys out. He's gonna be like Fernando Rodney, and I hate, we have these archetypes for players that we use.
Mhm.
I don't like using Fernando Rodney as the archetype for relief pitcher with good stuff who also can't locate. But that's what we're talking about, right? We're talking about a guy who can blow guys away when he can get it in the zone and he can get it past them, and who also sometimes is not going to throw strikes whatsoever.
Yeah.
And those guys, like Dan Cortez, ring a bell for anyone? Like I hate
Oh,
to bring up
good
some
god,
guys,
dude.
but like this is when I said in the Slack that I thought that this version of him is not a major league pitcher. That's what I mean. Without a tweak, without something to get him a little more marginally closer to that baseline of the strikes, I don't know if this guy lasts. And that's disappointing because I like watching him pitch and I love the slider. The slider
So
rocks.
good.
It's so
Yeah.
good. But it's okay. And it is an archetype. Guys who throw really hard and can't locate is an archetype. And he just happens to be that. And I think if they can get him to succeed, so, negativity aside, if they can get Matt Brash to succeed, if they can do some kind of a mechanical tweak and harness some of this, big win for the team. Huge win for the team, right? Like as a pitching
Yeah.
development organization, as a team that is trying to be progressive and get the most out of these guys, huge win. So I'm rooting for it.
Yeah.
A little skeptical as it currently stands. And
Mhm.
I hear that from you as well when you say, like something else has to break. Something's got to be different. This is not going to cut it. Um,
Yeah.
Sucks. Um, Anything else on Matt Brash, or I wanted to touch real quick on Matt Festa because he has continued to look good, although he's injured now. Have you dug into him at all since
Yeah.
last we talked?
Um, well, let's dig into him as we speak.
Hmm.
um, I mean, the home run problem has been a thing. Although his home runs per fly ball percentage is 33%. So literally a third of his fly balls, which he unfortunately induces a lot of, they've turned into home runs. And you know, how many is that? That's five. So 15 fly balls, five home runs. Um,
Nice.
yeah, I don't think that's gonna, continue to be an issue. He is more of a fly ball guy. But it's kind of the same thing as Brash or whoever else, is that he throws a sweeper. He throws a really good uh breaking ball, and I mean, he has a fastball that is whatever. He throws like 91. I don't know if you have numbers up. I'm pulling them up now.
Not those specifically.
Yeah. But he throws low 90s, so the fastball like isn't that good. Oh, 93. All right. I underestimated him. Um, but it's also a pretty flat pitch by vertical approach angle. So kind of in that Seawald vein. Like it's not elite like him by vertical approach angle, but um it definitely plays up, like from its velo. So I'm super super into Festa. As Brash does, he manipulates his breaking ball a little bit. Like sometimes it gets classified as a curveball. Um, but I think as the season goes on, he's filthy. I mean, he has the pitch that MLB is moving towards, and by CSW, both his fastball and slider he throws at about 35% CSW. So I don't know, like maybe by strike percentage the slider isn't good enough, but in terms of like having a swing and miss weapon, the slider is that. So I'm super into him, and I think that um between inducing a good amount of pop-ups um and having a filthy slider, which is one of the like best um I don't know how to phrase this. It's one of the most seam shifted pitches, I guess, in baseball. So it should be pretty good, and I think it is pretty good. Um, Maybe it comes down to the fastball. Although I think the home runs have come on the slider. No, he hasn't allowed. He hasn't. I mean, it's only been 11 batted balls. He hasn't allowed a barrel on his slider yet.
It's
He
good
has allowed
news.
a lot of barrels on his fastball. Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think the fastball is just not. It's not so great. It's a little too gyro heavy. But the slider's sick. Just throw the slider more, dude.
He's interesting. I think early in the season so far, he's probably the first candidate for like breakout bullpen guy. Last year we had a couple of guys obviously who really like ascended to make the bullpen elite. He feels
Hmm.
like the obvious early candidate to me, and obviously some of the guys from last year are still here. Seawald's pitching well, second writer. Um, but Festa seems like if you were to ask me looking at this bullpen right now, who among the other guy random names of which he is one could ascend to be something more, I think he's an interesting
Hmm.
candidate, and
Hmm.
Scott trusts him. He has pitched a lot so far, obviously sometimes this isn't the plan. He might not have even been on the team if Sadler hadn't been injured, but making
Hmm.
the best of a good situation, I guess. Festa so far
Yeah.
so good. um but I think let's move over to your Gausman article because I'm a 538 fan. I really haven't read the site as much in a couple of years, but Mikey's been writing, some articles for them lately about baseball. You wrote an article about Kevin Gausman, who's having just an absolutely dynamite year, also making the Mariners look a little bit foolish because we swapped aces with Toronto. They signed Gausman, we signed Robbie Ray, and one of those is working out better than the others so far. And in that context, Mikey, I wanted to pitch it over to you. What's Gossman doing to be so successful early on? I know he's got some new things going on with the pitch mix and just the effectiveness, but how are
Mhm.
you planning to relate this to Robbie Ray and kind of the position the Mariners find themselves in, and potentially good news for him going forward?
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of Gossman, I wrote about how the his pitches have changed, and he's using a slider, just about as much as he ever has, and his splitter, has continued to be sick. But what he's done is taken his splitter and he's added some horizontal break to it. So essentially, I talk about vertical approach angle a lot, and that's the angle that pitches enter the zone vertically. For fastballs, flatter is better, and for breaking balls, steeper is often better. There's also horizontal approach angle, which is the angle in which the zone or the pitches enter the zone horizontally. He has basically, he's started to locate his splitter more arm side and his slider more glove side. When you look at it by horizontal approach angle, because I believe, actually, definitely, vertical approach angle, one of the inputs is pitch height. And so by horizontal approach angle, an input is pitch length. I don't know. Like, it's not zone neutral. Like I cite zone neutral vertical approach angle sometimes. I don't have one for horizontal approach angle. He basically is he's pitching the splitter more arm side, the slider more glove side, which is creating a better pitch tunnel, to just make his splitter impossible. And at least that's how I see it. Like his splitter is more neutral in terms of HAA than ever. The slider is more, I don't know what the word would be, not steeper, but more extreme. And so basically they're just diverging more than ever, which is making both pitches better. I don't know if that is because of the pitch shape. I mean, for the splitter, it is. I don't know how much of it is, location based, but regardless, it's making his splitter just an impossible pitch. He's throwing it for, like, in terms of CSW, like 40+%. And we talk about strike percentage versus CSW. Out of that same sample as Brash, Gausman ranks 7th by CSW out of 133 starting pitchers. He ranks 1st by strike percentage, and like by a decent margin. 73.2% strike percentage, which the difference between him and Verlander is the difference between Verlander and, I don't know, like Merrill Kelly, which is
Wow.
2nd and 33rd. Like, that's a big difference, and that's
Yeah.
after his start yesterday. So Gausman has been sick. And like you said, because this isn't a Blue Jays podcast, it's making the Mariners look not very great.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even as recent, I wrote about Alex Cobb for Baseball Pro a month ago, and I kind of, teased in the end. I was like, it might not take very long for the Giants to make everyone look really foolish, because they have turned Cobb into Kevin Gausman, but they've turned him into 2021 Kevin Gausman.
Hmm.
Like Cobb ranks 14th by CSW and 40th by strike percentage. Like, that's really good. He's like 35. But Gausman has made me look foolish by looking insane.
Mm-hmm.
um, I mean, Ray's been, he hasn't been an ace, but he's been okay. Like, by CSW, he ranks 97th. By strike percentage, he ranks 58th, which is pretty good. That's like
Yeah.
Corbin Burns this year.
It's
Yeah,
not Cy
that's
Young caliber, but it's not bad.
it's above average. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, to put him by strike percentage in the Bassett, Montas, Dylan Cease, Corbin Burns, Yu Darvish area, like that, Jesus Luzardo, that's pretty good. Yeah, Giolito, he needs a velo. The thing about Gausman is, and I wrote it in the conclusion, is he just needed to not hemorrhage velo. He just needed to not throw like 91. So far, he's done that, and he's been, like I said, he's been sick.
Mm-hmm.
But Ray doesn't have the splitter. So maybe all along And obviously, it's easy to say with in hindsight. Maybe Gausman was a better bet all along, because the splitter was never going to go away. For Ray, like the sliders looked really good lately, but it's not the weapon that the splitter is. The splitter is one of the best weapons in MLB because not only does he throw it for strikes, but it doesn't get barreled. Guys aren't hitting that. Uh, so I think Ray has been better than he looks and that he's been made out to be. But boy, it's year one of a 5-year deal of $115 million. Again, I'm not going to twerk for the owners and say like, oh, spend money. But he has not looked like an ace, and that's not great.
Yeah, and I think when you look at his numbers, we said this on both podcasts, this podcast and on Lookout Landing. It's really possible last year was his peak career wise, and he will never be that good
Mhm,
again. And his career before that, he had not been that good. He was still good. He can still be shades of good, which is kind of where he's at now. He just
mhm,
wasn't a Cy Young before and might not be again. And that kind of sucks because the truth is we need somebody at the front end of the rotation. And so far, he's been our fourth best pitcher, maybe third or fourth. I would say
mhm,
that
mhm,
obviously Logan and probably Flex and realistically last night Marco has been okay.
mhm,
So he serves a purpose on this team, which is innings. The Mariners bullpen is not designed to soak innings. It is designed to hold leads and to dominate when they hold leads. And they
mhm,
do not do as well when they are asked to pitch 7 innings, 6 innings a game. And so Robbie Ray, even if he's going to not be a Cy Young winner, has utility for this team in soaking up some of those innings and being out there. And I think that's why even a couple of times you saw him get shelled a little bit, Scott left him out there because they just can't be pulling Robbie Ray in the third and fourth inning. It isn't gonna. That's not a winning
mhm.
recipe for this team, as it were. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it is disappointing. I guess my question to you, Mikey, would be: obviously Gausman is doing so well. It made me nervous in the beginning that the Blue Jays didn't re-sign Ray and they went with Gausman instead. That kind of goes to your point of maybe Gausman was the better pick overall. They offered him more
Mhm.
money, whatever. What kind of hope does Ray have going forward? Let's say he gets the velocity back, but if he's pitching 94, but he's still kind of this exact archetype we're seeing, how much more effective is that really? Does he have to? I guess I don't know what his ceiling is on this version of him. What would that be?
Yeah, I mean, I think even last year, if you look at him um by CSW, like his fastball wasn't that great. It's just by strike percentage is where he really shines, which these are just like statistical things, but it kind of shows that he was never that overpowering per se. Um, it's again, it's really easy to look at all this in hindsight and say all this, but like I'm pulling up his for starters 2021 strike percentage. Man, Gossman's right there at number 13. Robbie Ray's like 52nd. That's with the velo. And I mean, Corbin Burns is there too. So, strike percentage is not the end all be all. Rodon's there, Darvish is there. Uh, you can be good still. Actually, that's 52nd out of a lot, like 250 starters, but still like, yeah, maybe that's just because that's partially a sample thing. But still, like, I don't know, maybe Ray just wasn't ever really that good of a bet. Um,
Yeah,
he by like Exwo Bacon, was below average last year. By hard hit, he was below average last year, and you know these statistics are biased in that they're looking at batted ball quality. If you allow fewer batted balls into play than you know than average, then it doesn't really matter because um uh because it's like the Bieber thing. He doesn't allow that many balls into play because he throws a lot of strikes and he's not afraid to spike a ball. Um, and so it makes him look worse than he is. So that's why like a lot of these batted ball metrics, like you want to look at per PA. And that was the case for Robbie Ray. He ranks in terms of batted ball stuff, he ranks 229 out of 253. He doesn't allow that many balls into play. But this year, like his strike percentage is 20%. Um, his walk percentage is 8.5. That's about 30%. Whereas last year, his strikeout and walk rate was combined for like 40%. So the batted ball stuff is mattering more this year. Maybe he just has to shift to more of a slider guy, which is, I mean, his sliders looked really good lately. And his slider's always been a pretty good pitch. Some, I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to pull up like Brooks baseball. Maybe I'll pull up freaking no one has strike percentage. It's annoying. I'll just pull up his CSW for a slider, but um can you tell how all over the place I am today?
It's all good, dude. We're always winging this a little bit. We do actually prep for fans watching this. We do prep somewhat for the podcast, but we do try and wing it a little bit because like we're having a conversation. We're seeing where we go and what we
Right.
talk about and like kind of how we feel about it in real time. But yeah, sometimes we are frantically googling statistics. It happens.
Hey, I don't really think it's a good thing, to be like editing the podcast to make it, super just not like this is us. This is me. I'm all over the place.
On the Lookout
um
Landing podcast in particular,
mhm.
John's mic catches more of like the space he's in. And you can hear while Kate is talking, you can hear the keyboard clicking and it's John frantically looking stuff up. I love it. I think it's part of the ambiance of the episodes, but
Mhm. But yeah, I mean, I think to kind of make up for it, I think he's just got to go towards a more kitchen sink approach, which is what he like the opposite of what he's done this year. He's thrown a slider more and the fastball, as much as he was last year. So he's basically been exclusively fastball slider. But if your fastball slider isn't that dominant, I don't know. I think you've got to adjust. I don't know, man. The changeup curveball aren't all that. Like the curveball, I think gets really lit up. So that was already something that he was doing last year, is becoming more slider fastball heavy. He's just done that even more this year. Like he's up from 31% sliders to 37%. Uh Man, this makes me so sad. I don't know about you.
none
How
of it's
that's just like,
good. The thing is that
no.
there's not a lot of like ceiling in what I'm seeing in the numbers when I'm looking at Ray.
No.
It's
Yeah.
not that I
Yeah.
expect him to like fall off a cliff, but if you were to just show me these numbers and say, "Hey, like how good do you think this pitcher is?" 2 wins, right? Like
Oh
2
yeah.
wins, 2
I
wins.
He's what we're looking at is like a B war type pitcher. Like this is a guy that's gonna like gut it out and I don't know, man. I think the way, and let me just double check the batted ball numbers. Uh, I think the way is more get me over curveballs, uh, to just steal strikes, more sliders, fewer fastballs. Hopefully that makes the fastball play up. I mean, I I talk a lot with a guy um who works for an agency that like they represent players. They talk to players all the time about like, what should you do? How can we optimize you or your skills? I don't want to drop the name because that will give away what agency it is, whatever. But there's a pitcher who, his fastball really played up a couple years ago. Um he was kind of like this Logan Gilbert, Robbie Ray kind of archetype where like the fastball is pretty good, and he was really fastball heavy, like throwing probably 65% fastballs. The fastball's not as good anymore because it's lost a little bit of that velo. So he is kind of having to go with the kind of Chris Flexen more catch and sink approach. It's just like, let's kind of piecemeal all this together and make you a better pitcher. And what they told him, and what I told him without, hearing what they had said to him is, throw more curveballs in the zone, throw more elevated cutters, just like anything you can do to just get a strike here and there and to get hitters off your fastball, which is what Robbie Ray really needs to do at this point.
Yeah, keep them guessing, right? And keep them
Right.
guessing. Even if the pitches and the stuff around the fastball and the stuff that you feel comfortable throwing strikes with
Right.
isn't as good, it gives guys a different look. And that's the same thing we
Exactly.
talked about really all last year and this year with Gilbert, Give guys a
Mhm.
different look so they're not sitting there looking for the pitch that you throw 70-80% of the time. Which
Right.
is
So
Ray.
so probably some more changeups. I think definitely it's a get me over pitch, but like for whatever reason it gets when it gets put into play, it gets lit up pretty good. But probably more curveballs. It's just it is a different pitch. Like since 2019, it's when his curveball gets put into play, which is 85 batted balls, which isn't insignificant. 14% barrel percentage, which isn't good. But it also makes sense. It's like it's getting put into play because he throws it in the zone, which means when it is hit, hitters are gonna light it up. Um, but yeah, throw more curveballs in the zone, throw more changeups, maybe throw more like elevated sliders and curve, like just change it up. Don't become so one note, which he is right now. And like
Hmm.
he's just a fastball slider guy that just throws both arm side, or glove side, excuse me. Change it up. And I think, he's not gonna look overpowering, but he might look good. He might look better. Like the Statcast sliders are really average. And that's not what they should look like when we should be clear too. We are not mad at Robbie Ray.
No,
I'm happy for Robbie Ray. I'm happy he got paid. He's been fine.
he's been fine.
And it is what it is. Like he's getting paid for the production that he was worth, which
That's how
it
free
is what it is.
agency
We're
works. Yeah, we
right.
don't like it,
We're
but you pay for how good people used to be and not how good they're going to be, which is
exactly.
Justin
So
Upton.
like these types of things are they're set up to make players look bad. Right now, Robbie Ray to the average fan looks bad, but we love Robbie Ray and his tight pants.
And
But
his
I
power
think there are
stance on the
some
mound.
yeah, I think there are some things that he can change up. So I don't know. I will say in hindsight, Gausman got the same deal. He got 105 mil. Uh, so I kind of think I would love to have gotten Rodon or Gausman because they're
Dude,
both really good.
Rodon got
They're
like
both
a 1-year deal too, right? Or a 2-year deal with an option or
yeah,
something. It was like for
yeah.
no money.
They're
Should
both
have done
pitching
that.
out of their minds right now, but yeah. So I don't know. I think I think we should just kind of collect ourselves. The velo is down to 2019 and 2020, and maybe it was a bad idea to bet on a velo bump for a 29-year-old, 30-year-old. But there was, kind of a mechanical change to, that I wrote about that to kind of believe in. And so, hey, being a identifying, free agents is hard. Identifying talent in general is hard, and Robbie Ray is really talented, but I don't know. I think I mean the hope isn't that Robbie Ray is an ace for five. Well, I guess that is the hope, but like the expectation shouldn't be that he's an ace for 5 years. It's that Gilbert steps up, Kirby steps up,
Yeah.
Brash becomes, at the very least a 2 or 3 inning. Not at the very least, he becomes a relief ace. Like you you buy in free agency to supplement your organic, homegrown, developed, talent. Um, and that's what they're doing. So like maybe Ray's not an ace, but that's fine. He doesn't have to be an ace. He just has to be hopefully, for 5 years. I will be happy if Ray is this for 5 years. I'll say that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'll be fine with it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And realistically, like he probably should be better. He's had a little unfortunate luck, not necessarily in terms of the numbers, but in terms of like pitching during that hurricane slash windstorm that they probably should have just canceled. There are some weird fluky things in his numbers that I think he's maybe not as bad as it looks. He's not as good as he was last year. I think we understand that empirically.
Yeah.
Yeah, if he was just fine, if he was a 2-win pitcher for 5 years and we walked away from this contract with 10 wins, sure, right? Like,
Yeah.
you don't get to pick how good players are necessarily. And the truth is, like you said, we have other options. And we were hoping Robbie Ray was going to be an ace this year and really next year when we kind of don't have much else to supplement him with in terms of upside. But we're going to have another free
Mhm.
agency class to sign somebody or trade for somebody with as soon as this year's done. And going forward after that, he doesn't have to be the ace anymore. We're going to have some other people for that kind of, to take that mantle. So if he can just slot in the back of the rotation with Marco or, and Flexen and kind of just be another one of those guys who throws 170 innings and takes a lot of the load off the bullpen, sure.
Mhm.
In the immediate, in this year and next year sense, it does kind of suck, but I'm not in despair about it the way I am about other things that the Mariners have gone through recently. I also think we could say all of this for Jesse Winker too, right? That for whatever reason it hasn't gone the way we want this year. That doesn't necessarily mean there's some kind of underlying skill degradation. And if we're in it for the long haul, there should be brighter days ahead, right? Like
Maybe
similar.
and maybe we should touch on him, just briefly, and we can touch on him later in the week. Um but I was having a conversation about him recently where like his ex Woba is the same as it was in 2020 and 2021.
Hmm.
There's a 100 and math is hard. 15 point difference between his Woba and ex Woba. Like 276 Woba, 391 ex Woba, which would have been in the top 10 last I don't know why it's not red. It would have been in the top 10 of the past, the previous 2 years. I don't know why it wouldn't be this year. He's not barreling the ball as he was. Um, he's not hitting the ball super hard, but he's making up for it by walking and not striking out.
Hmm.
Um, I think there are brighter, brighter days ahead for him too. I don't know. Uh, just in looking at his bat path stuff, like he's getting under the ball a lot more. He's not topping the ball as much. He's hitting more flares and burners, which is really good for flares and burners. I don't know how sustainable they are or how reproducible, but they're really good in terms of creating because it's just like the little gorks over the shortstop or second baseman and kind of in the Bermuda Triangle. So like he's been Mike Trout against righties for 2 years now, probably longer. He'll be fine, and I think he's starting to heat up.
Yeah, he has finally hit a home run. Finally,
I'm sure that felt
mercifully.
so good,
Yeah.
getting that monkey off his back.
Hmm.
Same with I think it's the same with Julio. Is that he's finally done it. Now he can stop kind of swinging so damn hard. And I don't know if you can hear my cats going ape
Yeah.
shit in the background. Oh my gosh. But Julio and Winker have the monkeys off their back. Kelnick, I think he's. I think it was the last episode that we talked about. He's doing the things that in terms of like movement in his hands and getting that kind of like he needs that timing mechanism where uh the bat he's hitting the bat off the little bat tap on his shoulder for the timing mechanism. He's getting his hands kind of uh locked and ready, and they're ready to fire to the ball, and his upper and lower half are more synced up. So
Mhm.
it remains to be seen if he can hit breaking and off speed stuff, but I think this is the best that mechanically has looked this year and the best he's looked since September, which is when he was really good and looked really good mechanically. Um, I will note that even then he wasn't that great against breaking stuff, but
Mhm.
hey, some hitters are just good fastball hitters, and that is fine, and they can't hit really breaking stuff. So, we can I think it's better when we keep it was nice when we had like a short little like 55-minute podcast. I think it's better for listeners when we keep it short. So, we'll touch on some of these things I think later.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we should touch on the Discord channel before we go.
Yeah. What did you want to mention other than just that it's open and available?
Yeah. So we put out we've been talking about it recently just internally, but we put out a little thing and we were like, are people interested in paying like $1 to $2 to be in our Discord channel? And people were like, fuck no. So we were like, okay, maybe, just subscribe if you would just like to out of the goodness of your heart. We're still trying to figure out like reach out to us if there's something that would be interesting to you in terms of like getting Patreon tiers set up. But in the meantime, just like if you like our content, like subscribe. It's only I think a couple dollars a month. Um but we have a Discord channel that is open to the public where, we can chat about baseball, and I think, more specifically the Mariners, and we have about 20 people in it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been nice. So um I think it's pinned in our on our Twitter, account. If you can't find it, reach out to us. But we like talking Mariners baseball with y'all, obviously, because we do it hopefully one time a week. But yeah, I think just in the meantime, I hope everyone enjoys, the Kirby start, because I think it's gonna be fun, and we have a Discord channel that you won't hear this in the meantime, but by the next Mariners game, you will hear, and you can hop in. Maybe I'll tweet something out.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, go George Kirby, go It's Never Sunny in Seattle Discord channel.
Yeah. We'll do a quick wrap today. I'm Evan James Audio on Twitter. Mikey is Kuya Mikey on Twitter. Anders obviously is not here with us today. He's doing Mother's Day stuff. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is you stream. As Mikey said, please support the podcast on Patreon, patreon.com/neversunny in Seattle. I will also link it at the end here. Thanks for listening. Go Mariners, and feel free to hop in that Discord if you're so inclined. So yeah, we'll see you there.